Good morning, everyone, and this is part 1 of review for APUSH Period 7, which starts with the Progressive Era in 1890 and goes till the end of the Roaring Twenties in 1929. And let's dive on in. The Progressive Era, 1890 to 1912, and we're going to start with muckrakers. Muckrakers are made up of reform-minded American journalists who talk about established institutions and corrupt leaders to, in a way, attack them, which started in 1900. They used their often large audiences to spread awareness of these corrupt leaders. Some examples are Jacob Riis, Ida Tarbell, and Upton Sinclair. The 18th Amendment was the prohibition of alcohol to try and fix the issues of people dying from alcoholism and stop a tremendous amount of money being spent. This amendment was passed in 1919, which led to people secretly sneaking alcohol around and places secretly selling alcohol, along with some police officers also doing the same, which caused even worse issues. The progressive movement is the outcome of two groups of people responding to industrialization and starting social and or political movements to strive for change to end corruption in American government. The Great Migration was the movement of millions of Americans to areas such as the urban Northeast, Midwest, and West of America, which began in 1916 and kept going until 1970. World War I, 1914 to 1919, and we're going to start with neutrality. America wanted to stay neutral in the First World War, which both the people and President Woodrow Wilson agreed on. But once Germany tried to quarantine the British, America became involved due to Britain being America's closest trading partner. Once war began by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, it was the Allies against the Central Powers. The Allies were Britain, France, Russia, Italy, and the United States, and the Central Powers consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. The effects of war on American society is prominent. With men at war, there were multiple jobs that needed employees, and since men were at war, women were up. Women worked jobs, and for thousands of them, it was their first time working. Women's help, both as volunteers and workers, has a positive impact on Woodrow Wilson to support their push for the 19th Amendment. Along with women changing for the better, people of color also did, mainly African Americans and Mexicans. Job opportunities opened, and Mexicans migrated to America to work in agriculture and mining in the Southwest, and some also went into the Midwest for factory jobs. All the while, African Americans migrated towards the North for any work in general. The Big Four was made up of representatives from France, Great Britain, Italy, and the U.S. The Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty that brought an end to World War I, which was created by the Big Four. The conditions of the Treaty of Versailles can be remembered by BRAT, B standing for Germany taking the blame, R for paying for reparations, A for reducing their army, and lastly T for losing territory. After the war ended, Americans wanted to become isolationist due to the amount of American soldiers lost and the horrible atrocities that occurred. Then race riots began in America due to the migration of colored people obtaining jobs. The competition between colored and whites to get jobs started racial tensions, which led to violence in multiple cities. The worst riot was in Chicago, where 40 people were killed and 500 were injured. The Roaring Twenties, 1919 to 1929. World War I is coming to a close, and Woodrow Wilson has come up with his 14 points and different ideas to create lasting peace in the world. By the end of the Treaty of Versailles, only one of these points had passed, and that was the creation of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was a group of allied nations banding together to avoid major outbreaks of war like World War I. But the U.S. isn't thrilled about getting involved in Europe and goes into a period of isolationism and focuses on domestic issues instead of foreign issues. After Wilson doesn't get chosen as the Democratic nominee for his third term, he decides to run on a third party and gets beaten by the Republican nominee Warren G. Harding. The Harding administration has one main focus, and that was to get the country back to what it was before the war. This was known as the return to normalcy. This also included a very laissez-faire economy, which meant that the government was very hands-off and didn't get involved with business affairs. Unfortunately, Harding was under huge amounts of stress during his time as president, and with his intensive traveling schedule, it took a toll on his body, and he passed away during his time in office. One of the biggest events that happened during the Harding administration was the Teapot Dome scandal. This was the biggest government scandal to date and included the illegal buying and selling of alcohol, oil, and an immoral and greedy president. Unfortunately, most of this was uncovered after Harding's death. His vice president at the time, Calvin Coolidge, took his place as president. Coolidge didn't do much as his time as president, but his main goal was to fix and tame all the problems that occurred during Harding's time in office, and many scandals being uncovered. Also, new movements took place. One of the major ones was women's suffrage. Women attained their ability to vote under the 19th Amendment, after many years of struggling and fighting for it. Also, women began joining the military as well as the workforce, and one of the biggest icons at the time is the famous Rosie the Riveter. The 1920s were the most empowering years for women, where they strived for independence and change. The Roaring Twenties were also a time where development of new social standards and ideas were seen in the peril of men and women. Most of these women were known as flappers due to their oversized, floppy shoes. And due to the prohibition, illegal tap rooms and bars were opened in secret, and these were known to the public as speakeasies. And that's it for part 1 of APUSH Period 7 Review. Please continue with watching part 2 of Period 7 Review, and I hope you all have a great day.